Hello everyone, hope you are all well. Let's start our discussion. Good morning and good afternoon to all of you, depending on where you are. I'm Zainab Malakuti and I'm a visiting fellow at the Middle East Institute, National University of Singapore. Today, we are going to have a discussion with Dr. Javad Hirania on the very important topic, the Iran-Israel 12-day war, the implication for the Persian Gulf security order. The subject of today's discussion is very timely. As you probably know, on Tuesday, Israel attacked Hamas leadership in Qatar, while this Hamas leaders were discussing on proposal offered by Donald Trump, the president of the U.S., regarding the release of hostages and an end to the Gaza war. Dr. Javad Hirania is the director of the Persian Gulf Studies Group at the Center for Scientific Research and Middle East Strategic Studies in Iran. Welcome, Dr. Hirania, and thank you for accepting our invitation. For your information, this webinar will last 1 hour. Dr. Hirania will begin by presenting his remark on this topic. And after that, we will move into a discussion. If you have any questions, please submit your question in Q&A or chat box section. And please turn off your camera and mute your mic. So, Justice, I make short and I hand it over to you, Dr. Hirania.
Gratitude to the Middle East Institute of the National University of Singapore, and especially to Dr. Zainab Malakuti for this kind invitation. The topic I would like to discuss concerns the impact of the 12-day war between Iran and Israel on the security order of the Persian Gulf region, and particularly its effect on approaches of the GCC country in this area. As introduction, the 12-day war served as a geopolitical turning point that transferred the balance of power in Middle East and signaled the emergence of a new regional order. This war exposed Iran's weakness in maintaining its proxy network and the Shiite Crescent project. It also demonstrated that GCC members, despite efforts to stay out of the conflict, could not completely avoid its consequences. So the escalation with Iran prevented the costly war from spreading to these countries. Iran's attack on the US Al-Udeid air base in Qatar in retaliation for the US strike on its nuclear facility challenged the security policies of the Gulf state. This country had sought to balance their security interests with the risk of conflict with Iran by hosting US forces, but this attack revealed the vulnerability of such strategies. Prior to the 12-day war, the security order in the Persian Gulf in recent years was influenced by the US pivot to Asia and containing China, manifested in offshore balancing strategy, and pursued expanded cooperation with Israel through the Abraham Accord. The Gaza war and the attack on Iran, which demonstrated the prospect of Israeli hegemony, have raised concern among the GCC members. The Abraham Accords changed the security architecture of the Persian Gulf region and created a new security order. This new order is in line with US strategy based on offshore balancing in the Persian Gulf in order to reduce its military presence and focus on containing China. Further, this strategy is somewhat of a revision of traditional American alliance known as Trojan alliances, in which the main burden of the security cost was borne by the US, with the rest of the alliance members receiving a free ride. This new regional security order has entered a more serious phase by moving Israel from US European EUCOM to US Central Command Center to enhance security intelligence cooperation in Israel and the Persian Gulf Arabs, including the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. The ultimate objective is even the establishment of a joint defense system comprising the Gulf Arab state and Israel under leadership of the United States. The formation of such a joint defense system has become likely more necessary for the Arabs, especially after the 12-day war and by appearance of Iranian missiles in Qatar skies. However, it remains a provocative issue for Iran. Furthermore, Israel's definition of the Iranian threat is being extended to the Gulf Arabs. At the same time, Persian Gulf Arabs are currently more concerned about Israel itself and its hegemonic ambitions, particularly with Netanyahu's Greater Israel proposal and his ironic remark to Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi Crown Prince, about establishing a Palestinian state on Saudi territory. While security order of the Persian Gulf was characterized by the normalization of relations between Arabs and Israel and the creation of blocs such as I2U2 and India Middle East European Economic Corridor, IMEC corridor. The October 7 Hamas attack on Israel, followed by the Gaza war attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon, aligned with the fall of Bashar al-Assad regime, have drastically shifted the balance of power decisively in Israel's favor. The idea of a new regional order in which Israel acts with impunity while dictating security norms to its neighbor is deeply undesirable for the traditionally pro-Western Gulf Arab states. These concerns are partly fueled by the minimal resistance and strong support from the US and Europe for Israel's actions, which has deeply alarmed the Gulf Arabs. The US attack on Iran's nuclear facility in support of Israel, despite Arab efforts to prevent it, demonstrated America's serious commitment to backing Israel. Although Iran had warned that US entry into the 12-day war would result in its regional bases being targeted, US, in order to support Israel, disregarded Iran's serious threat against the Arab state. This will influence the Gulf Arabs' perception of Americans' unconditional support for Israel in the Middle East, despite their long-standing opposition to Tehran's nuclear program. The Gulf Arabs are deeply invested for their own national security interests in avoiding action that would lead to direct conflict between Israel or United States and Iran, or the collapse of the Islamic Republic of Iran. In the context of the recent war, this means they welcome the reduction of Iran's nuclear capabilities, but are simultaneously concerned about Israel's overwhelming military superiority and the potential consequences of the Islamic Republic's collapse under pressure. Tehran Arabs or rivals prefer dealing with the contained Iran rather than regime change. They do not want Iran to descend into instability and chaos. This could trigger humanitarian crises and refugee flows, which would be morally troubling and economically disastrous for the region. While the Gulf states oppose Iran's regional hegemony, they also condemned Israel's surprise attack on Iran. Indeed, their desired scenario is an Iran that can counterbalance Israel, yet not become so weak that the balance of power shifts decisively in Israel's favor. However, from their perspective, these strikes weaken the military capability of a rival whose nuclear ambition have long frightened its neighbors. In reality, they seek stability to advance their domestic growth agenda and economic prospect. However, any prolonged conflict or internal turmoil in Iran is seen as a potential risk to the region's tourism, trade, and foreign investment, evidenced by the closure of Gulf airspace and the stock market crashes during the hostility. The 12 war may have demonstrated the region's economic resilience in withstanding short-term disruption, but a 2 or 3 year war could cost Gulf economic between $730 billion and $1 trillion, including slowed growth, reduced foreign direct investment, and delay in major projects. A prolonged regional conflict could severely shake investor confidence, derail national development strategies, and erase years of economic progress in the Persian Gulf. Gulf monarchies fear that diplomacy alone may not be enough. The fragile ceasefire between Israel and Iran could collapse at any moment. In an all-out war where Iran has lost a great deal, there is a possibility of the limited closure of the Strait of Hormuz and attacks on Americans based in Gulf countries, not just in Qatar. During the two-day war, Iran sought to keep the conflict limited. Attacking Al-Udeid with the prior notice would have been a less costly move. However, if the cost of the war becomes too high for it, Iran may resort to more severe reaction for the purpose of deterrence. Despite the Arabs' effort to distance themselves, the presence of US base on their soil makes them vulnerable to direct retaliation, enabling, escalating Iran-Israel tensions have also emboldened the Houthis to abandon their ceasefire with the United States and increase attacks on ships in Red Sea and other vital artery for Saudi trade. It should be noted that regional priorities are shifting, and Israel, our reliance on military power, increasingly clash the future Gulf leaders are trying to shape one where the region becomes an economic hub for investment, not a cinematic backdrop for perpetual conflict. Please, next slide. GCC countries had been reducing tensions with Iran in recent years, taking a different path from Washington, their primary security partner. The 2019 attack on Aramco and the weak US response exposed Saudi Arabia's vulnerability to Iranian aggression and Washington's unreliability, prompting Riyadh to step back from its previously aggressive stance toward Tehran. In reality, growing doubt about the US commitment to defend them in the event of a direct confrontation drove this shift. The GCC began prioritizing bilateral engagement and diplomacy with Tehran to manage tensions independently. This shift was also closely tied to Gulf economic ambitions, which depend on the stability, predictability, and attracting investment, goals incompatible with persistent tension. The normalization agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia was a key turning point in this shift. Since then, GCC capitals have actively used diplomatic channels to mitigate the fallout from Hamas' October attack and more recently Israel's strike on Iran. Gulf states publicly condemned Israel attacks and assured Tehran they would neither support nor facilitate any aggression. In reality, U.S. foreign policy and its pivot to Asia strategy diminished America passed the security guarantees for the Gulf Arabs, as we can see in attack of Israel on Qatar. In this context, Gulf states like Saudi Arabia have gained a degree of strategic autonomy in their regional policies while also diversifying their strategic partnership. Of course, this trend of strategic independence, known as the Gulf Moment, has been pursued following the Arab Spring. It is characterized by components such as: one, modernizing the armed forces and establishing domestic defense industries; two, diversifying regional and extra-regional defense and military partnership. Riyadh realized that resolving issues like the Yemen war was either beyond US capabilities or not a priority for Washington. Consequently, it sought to settle the conflict without US involvement, ultimately leading to Saudi-Iran reconciliation brokered by China. From Iran's perspective, normalized relations with Arab neighbors had decoupled US and GCC position on Iran. In this regard, most GCC members refused to allow their territory or airspace to be used for provocative military action against Tehran and avoid participating in US operations against the Houthis in Red Sea and Yemen. If there are one strategic lesson Gulf leaders have drawn from this crisis, it is that diplomacy with Iran has been wise. By acting independently, often against Washington wishes, they have established communication channels that have partly shielded them from the worst outcome. Although the Al-Udeid base was targeted in the 12-day war, Iran's attack was carried out with prior notification and was limited. Furthermore, if tensions existed between Iran and the Persian Gulf Arabs, there would also be a possibility of Arab countries such as Saudi Arabia or Emirates being targeted by Houthis of Yemen. Arab states concerned over rising tension are not limited to military issues. They also fear indirect consequences like disruption to global energy market, mass migration, and growth of extremist groups. In a direct war between Iran and Israel or the United States, there is a possibility of the conflict spreading to Arab countries due to their hosting of US military base. For Iran, they are the most accessible targets that could pressure the US to stop the war. Persian Gulf Arabs, including Saudi Arabia, view Netanyahu's hegemonic and belligerent policies in the Arab world as contrary to their interests. For Riyadh, the best policy to counter and isolate Israel's new regional role is balancing and diplomacy. A traditional concern for Gulf monarchy was the challenge posed by Iran proxy, but the weakening of Iran's proxies in the region along with Israeli military expansion in the region has significantly shifted the balance of power in favor of Israel. This has caused concern among the Gulf Arabs. A key worry is that US and Israeli action could push Iran toward nuclear weapon and existential threat. Israel also appeared to pursue vision of regional dominance that deeply worry Arab power. Its ultimate goal a reconstructed new Middle East, as Netanyahu said, by decisive military power leaves little room for Gulf interest or autonomy. Iran's strike on Al-Udeid also had implications implications for the security order of the Persian Gulf. One, demonstrating Iran's ability to target key U.S. military infrastructure in the region. Therefore, the 12-day war diminished the Gulf Arabs' trust in the U.S. security umbrella, as we can see in uh, Israel attack on Qatar, and also highlighted the regional uncertainty stemming from Iran's adventures and Israel military audacity, the result of which is the continued expansion of the Gulf states' diplomatic ambitions. Specifically, Saudi Arabia and the Emirates have shown a willingness to cooperate with new strategic partners and reassess existing alliance. Two, increasing the cost for Arab states hosting Western military bases. Three, undermining the U.S. image as the absolute guarantor of Gulf security. Despite its limited operational scale, the attack sounds alarm bells in Arab capitals. They interpreted it as a serious warning but avoided direct military or political confrontation with Tehran to prevent escalation and protect economic and security interests. The conflict between Israel and Iran has underscored acute vulnerability of the Gulf state to regional instability. However, this crisis has also revealed the diplomatic space this country now occupies. Saudi Arabia and the Emirates are beginning to play roles that extend beyond merely responding to instability, emerging as potential operators, mediators, and stabilizers in the region. And let me move to Iran's efforts to save its proxies after Hamas attack on Israel. One of the issues that become clear after 12 war is that Iran's investment in proxy forces did not did not come to its aid at the critical moment. The reason for this stance were their weakening in the war with Israel, I mean Hamas and Hezbollah, and internal pressure, like pressure on Hezbollah in Lebanon and Shabi in Iraq, as well as their survival approach. In the war with Israel, Hezbollah not only lost its command structure but also saw its military structure weakened. The fall of Bashar Assad regime also blocked the logistical path for Hezbollah revival. Hamas was unable to support Iran and the Yemen Houthis due to geographical distance. They were incapable of providing serious support. This group were the main element of Iran's security doctrine known as forward defense. After receiving the initial blows, Iran managed to control the war within 4 or 5 days and eliminate the existential threat. This was achieved through the revival of its missile capabilities. It is unclear whether Iran asked proxy forces to enter the war. It may have been argued that Iran should preserve these forces for an all-out war to utilize their remaining capabilities in a broader conflict, possibly involving the extensive entry of the United States. Since Iran lacks equipped air force, including fighter jet, proxy forces playing a significant role in its forward defense and strategic depths, alongside its missile and drone capabilities. Accordingly, reviving this group is significant for Iran in terms of deterrence. Based on this, Ali Larijani, the new secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, traveled to Iraq and Lebanon on his first trip and emphasized support for the Shabi in Iraq and Lebanon Hezbollah. Although the revival is difficult and challenging due to pressure from the United States and Israel, as well as the internal situation in these two countries, Iran is trying to prevent their weakening. Given the severe economic limitation, shifting regional power dynamics that have diminished the effectiveness of proxy warfare, blocked aid channel, and intensified pressure from the United States and Israel, Iran's effort to revive its proxy forces will be exceedingly difficult. Based on this, Iran's traditional deterrence model, which was based on forward defense, also known as deterrence by denial, and relied on a network of proxy forces, has weakened. Therefore, Iran is attempting to introduce a deterrence model that imposes high cost on aggressor, and in the event of a full-scale war, expands the scope of the conflict to the Gulf Arabs by threatening regional energy infrastructure, including the security of its transit. Iran aims to increase the cost of war and thereby establish deterrence. The 12-day war underscored the urgent need to retain traditional regional security models. In the Gulf, Arabs defined themselves within the US-led regional order, exemplified by initiatives such as IMEC Corridor and I2U2. However, the definition of Iran as a threat differs from that of Israel and the United States. Generally, it must be noted that the Gulf countries are all in the state of the siege mentality, as they are caught between the demand of Iran, Israel, United States, and the best approach for them is to establish a balance. Despite concerns about Israeli hegemony, it is unlikely that Arab states will move significantly closer to Iran for purpose of balancing. To avoid being caught in Iran-Israel or US wars, we will continue pursuing delicate balancing act and hedging strategies. The future of Iran's nuclear negotiation will largely determine the contours of the regional order. Let me stop here and finish my lecture, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hiranya. That's very comprehensive picture of the Middle East and the position of the GCC, Iran, Israel regarding the security. If any one of you have a question, please write in the chat box. By the meantime, I think that at the moment, the Middle East, now the scene of the Middle East is much more clearer. So now we know about the Israel's position, GCC positions, and Iran's and Turkey, especially after the recent attack of Israel on Hamas leadership. I think that at the moment, this is a turning point for the GCC countries in order to reach a solution for the order in the Middle East, which I think that this solution must come from within the region rather than from outside. Although the GCC should also maintain its relation with the US, Israel, and West. But do you think that these Gulf countries will reach to a decision in order to keep and also make a new security order?
Thank you. I think yes, this is true that Qatar, for the first time as a first country in the GCC, was targeted by the Israel, and this is a very alarming issue. But I think there is no alternative for them in security issue for them at this moment. Yes, they want gradually choose a strategic partner and this trend get back to Arab Spring, and after the, and especially after Houthis attack on Aramco in 2019. And the Gulf Arab states try to choose and to diversify their strategic partner and move to independent military industry. For example, Saudi Arabia empowered the Sami industry in Saudi, and Emirates also do so. But there is no big country that would like to give a plan for security order in the region. No China, no India, and no Russia uh, don't like and don't want to give security order in the region, because this is very costly, and they also cannot afford to do and to shape a security order in the region. So at the moment, uh, regional countries prefer to be under the United States umbrella by integration models like joint defense system with Israel. They may they may change previous idea, and in joining to Abraham Accord, maybe we can see some changes in ideas of countries in the region.
Thank you so much. With the Israel's attack on Iran, and after that, Iran attacked Al-Udeid military base, U.S. military base in Qatar, and now recent attack happened. Um, I think that the U.S. military bases in Qatar were supposed to guarantee regional order. But at the moment, we can see vice versa. It's the opposite of that. Um, at the same time, when the US has a military base in Qatar, the largest one in the Middle East, at the same time, Israel has pursued its own plan to just attack Qatar. Do you think that there is at the moment fragility of Gulf US security relations, and Qatar or GCC will go toward China or Russia, or they keep their distance with United States?
Thank you. It should be noted that Qatar was designated as a major non-NATO ally during the Biden administration, following Kuwait and Bahrain. Additionally, largest U.S. military base in the Middle East is located in Qatar. Furthermore, during his first foreign trip in his second presidential uh, term, Trump also visited Qatar. The Qataris hope that by proposing extensive investment, they could change the Trump administration perspective toward them. However, during Trump's first time, his approach toward Qatar led to an economic blocked by Arab countries. The Israeli attack on Qatar proved that what determine outcomes in the Middle East is not economic and or security dependency, but rather strategic and identity-based and geopolitical ties. The Gulf countries have a one-sided security dependency and two-sided economic dependency with the United States and West, but they suffer from a lack of strategic and identity-based alignment. In such an environment, regional countries must either build strategic identity bonds or will consistently face a situation of fragile security. This attack showed that while the US may not have given Netanyahu a green light, it did not propose the attack either. Israel's attack on Qatar could have an effect similar to Iran's attack on Aramco. That is, the US security umbrella only works when America's own interests are secure. Therefore, the Arab states would consider it worthless and choose and diversify their strategic partners, such as mentioned in the question, Russia and China. Nevertheless, the US is trying to keep Doha satisfied by announcing the need for a bilateral defense agreement with Qatar. From security and economic perspective, it is also unlikely that Qatar and other Gulf countries will reduce this relation with the United States and even Israel. Though the concerns about Israeli hegemonic ambitions are growing. Yes, they in somehow after Arab Spring and I, as I told, after attack on Aramco facilities, the Gulf Arab choose some way to act independently regarding security issues and diversifying strategic partner and focusing on domestic military industry were among them. But as I mentioned, there is no better alternative for them for secure them, and for this reason they are they prefer to be under the United States.
Thank you so much. I completely agree with you. So we have two questions here, kind of related. Do you think that is there any chance we see the US-Iran deal in the short-term future? And also, please share your insight on nuclear negotiations with Iran. What do you think about the Iran-US negotiations?
Thank you very much. Recently, we see an agreement between Iran and IAEA, International Atomic Agency, that was one of the conditions of Europe E3, England, Britain, Germany, and France. Before Istanbul talk, they put three conditions for Iran. One of them was the complete cooperation between Iran and the atomic agency. And reaching such an agreement is a green light for starting a negotiation between Iran and the United States. And the other precondition was direct talk between Iran and the United States. Iran rejected the direct talk with the United States and emphasized on indirect talk. But here, what is important is this issue that the United States seems that thinks Iran is weak after attacking on its nuclear facility, and for this reason, United States wants such a political appeasement, and I think for the United States at this moment is two-way. One is political appeasement and another military appeasement. But the war, the 12 war and United States attack on Iran nuclear facilities uh, has shown us that destroying or in better words, resolving the Iran nuclear issue is not possible by attacking and need political process and for this reason the idea of nuclear is among Iranian of, officials and for this reason United States and not uh, Israel wants to start a negotiation with Iran, but they should turn back from such conditions such as zero enrichment and try to find a medium wave to reach an agreement.
Thank you so much for that. So I want to go back to the 12-day war. Inside Iran, at the moment, the thinker and strategists say that Qatar was not a good choice for retaliation and attacking to the US military Al-Udeid. What do you think about that? Because some of them even suggest, after the war, currently, they suggest Bahrain instead of Qatar. What do you think about the choice of Iran for retaliation?
Yes, as I mentioned, Iran chose Qatar because Iran preferred to limit war and not provoke United States to enter the war very seriously. And for this reason, Iran managed launching missiles to Israel. And Iran chose Qatar, and why didn't choose, for example, Saudi Arabia or Bahrain or other GCC members? If Iran uh, wanted to attack, for example, Saudi Arabia, the they the Saudi maybe retaliate and enter in the war with Iran, and the war with Saudi Arabia uh, was very costly for Iran at that moment because Israel, because Iran's missile arsenal was diminishing, and for this reason, Iran want to manage the war and attacking on Qatar in some who yes, this is a very important issue, but Iran wants to uh, retaliate in a symbolic manner. But the Qatar was the first GCC member that Iran targeted it. And in Bahrain, there are many Shia, and for this reason, and five fleet of U.S. Navy is located in Bahrain, and Shia in Bahrain is influenced by Iran, and attacking on it give the Bahraini government good instrument for suppress them and tell them that Iran is aggressor Shia state. And for this reason, Iran choose Qatar for not entry regional state into war and prevent the entry of the United States into war seriously.
Yeah. Thank you so much. my question is about the future, what the GCC will do and what they can do. Do you think that there will be a coordinated response by the GCC, like downgrading ties with Israel or even issue strong statements against normalization with Israel after this week attack?
Yes, they are trying to plan a joint plan with Qatar with other GCC member to retaliate against Israel attack. But because this incident is different for Qatar and especially for GCC members. They were worried about the Israel ambition after Hamas attack, and especially by targeting Syria after Bashar al-Assad, and the direct war with Iran warned the GCC members, and they entered into the war and bear the cost of the war by attacking by Iran's attack on Al-Udeid base in Qatar. But the joint action of the GCC members related to U.S. Green light to them. I think they know the Netanyahu ambition is go beyond the just attack on Qatar, and as Israeli officials announced yesterday, they also the possibility of another attack on Qatar is possible uh, for Israel for attacking Hamas leaders. Yes, for this reason, GCC member is are afraid that another country may be maybe another member of the GCC. For this reason, they try to make such a deterrence uh, and try to shape a coalition that show Israel that GCC members uh, uh, are not just under the United States security umbrella and can do independently in the regard of a threat.
We have a question from Clement. Can you explain the level of support shown by China and Russia for Iran, most specifically about the security and defense aspect?
Iran has two long-standing documents with China and Russia. Uh, the 25 cooperation document between Iran and China was signed in Raisi presidency, but there are some exaggeration in the Western country about the cooperation between Iran and Russia and China. We saw some articles about the axis of evil that refer to Iran, China, and Russia and North Korea cooperations and shaping the devil state. And I think the idea of strategic partnership is not true regarding Iran and China relation and Iran and Russia relation. They are Russia and China are two great powers and determine the rule of game with Iran and use Iran as a instrument to counter with the United States and Western countries. As we saw in a recent war between Iran and Israel, no Russia and neither Russia nor China uh, did not support Iran and even politically, not just in military. They didn't support Iran and politically and Iran, whereas Iran supported Russia in the Ukraine war and gave Moscow some drone and reportedly missile, but Russia, in the case of 12 war, did not support Iran, and it is not kind of a strategic partnership. And I think some hardliner in Iran emphasize on strategic partnership with Russia and China uh, because of internal balance in Iran, and because some Western pro relation in Iran emphasize on the relation with the Western countries and look to the West foreign policy, but the supporters of look to the East foreign policy because of internal issue and because deep state in Iran prefer to work with China and Russia, and for this reason they try the propaganda regarding relation with China and Russia. But I don't see this kind of relation as a strategic relationship.
Yeah, we are running out of time. We have 5 minutes. The last question is from Professor Rohan from NTU University. He asked, is regime change a possibility in Yemen? But I think that he meant in Iran. But do you have any comment on regime change?
Regime change in Iran. Regime change, yes, is possible, but for Iranian people, as 12 war shows has shown us, there is no reliable alternative for Iranian people, and there is no peaceful transition to next government or next regime peace. And many people are worried about the violation transition to the next regime, and there are no specific alternative for them. There is no united opposition in abroad, and some of them belongs to right wing and are nationalism, and some of them are uh, uh, located in left wing, and there is no unified opposition abroad, and for this reason, and the government that mandated by Israel is not Iranians' preference, and for this reason, the regime change is a complicated issue in Iran. I think maybe a structural reform uh, and structural reform is better way for Iranian people to change some things in Iran. But the 12 day war has shown the fragility of the government and regime in Iran. Uh, and but the people of Iran did not follow the Israeli request and Reza Pahlavi request to protest and to protest against the Iranian political system, because as I mentioned, there is no specific alternative, and the transition to next government and regime is not peaceful.
Thank you so much. We don't have enough time. That was very interesting discussion with you, and thank you for accepting my invitation. And I hope to see you in the future event at the Middle East Institute, National University of Singapore. Have a nice day, and thank you so much, Jabbat. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much